Welcome, everyone. Today we are joined by Felix from myGermanFinance, and we talk about, digital insurance and the private insurance health system in Germany. Hi, Felix. How are you doing?
Hi, Danny. Great having me here. I'm doing very well today.
Thanks for finding the time. And please take a minute to introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks. So I'm Felix, as you mentioned. I live in Augsburg, close to Munich, and I'm since 22 years already in the German insurance industry. Um, I'm married to an expat wife, so I learned by myself how when she came here how difficult it is for internationals to integrate in Germany, and especially how finances and insurances are sometimes a daunting topic. And that's why I started my own company at the beginning of this year. As you mentioned, myGermanFinance is the name. I'm working as an insurance broker and consultant, and I specialize helping non-German speakers helping to find private health insurance.
Great. Very interesting to know that you have a first hand experience with your wife, and then seeing the both sides, right? How difficult it can be, especially if the person is not speaking German, or in general, it can be overwhelming, especially in Germany. And I believe today's conversation will help our viewers to at least understand what they need to wrap their heads around when it comes to insurance in general, but private insurance in particular. So, can you tell us more about your business? Your is it an agency or consultancy? How would you define it?
It's an interesting question. I would say I work more as a consultant, so I'm an insurance broker. Basically, that means I can choose from all insurance companies in Germany to get offers to my clients. I advise clients, and I'm working on a commission based model. So if people are happy with what I advise them, they buy a product, and I get compensated through that.
Hmm.
Um, I'm completely free, so I'm working out of the interest of my clients. So I'm not working with just one insurance company. In this segment, you would speak from an agency when you're just tied to one insurer, but that's not the case for me. I started it at the beginning of this year. I was the last years working more in the software field related to insurances, and I came along a lot of people, mostly from the IT field, that came to Germany because we need the skilled workforce here, and had no clue about how that works with getting valid health insurance for the visa, finding an insurance company that might even speak English and help them getting what they need in a fast manner, in an English way, and saw the unique challenges internationals have, because it's just different from what most of the German clients face.
Okay. So, would you say your clients get in touch with you before they arrive to Germany, or after they all are already in the country?
It's different. It's different. So I talk to people who are still in their home country and are on the way to come here. That is one kind of customer I advise and help getting a solution from the start. But the majority of the people I speak to right now are people who are already here in Germany since a year, some a little bit longer. They took public health insurance at the beginning because they didn't know the difference, and now they reach out to me and ask me to help explaining the difference of the two models first, and then if that might be the right thing for them to change the systems.
Uh, Great. And then maybe in short lines, what would be your definition of the differences, or how would you distinguish public and private health insurance in Germany? How do you explain it to someone who does not
Yeah,
uh, have a lot of knowledge
it's
around it?
pretty. It's not that difficult. So we have two systems here: public insurance, which is the basic system everybody needs to have, basically. Um, Private insurance you can have just in certain conditions. You need to earn in this year almost over 70,000 gross income a year, or you're a freelancer, self-employed, or civil servant, but civil servant doesn't apply for most of my international clients. So when you're eligible for these systems, very often it can make sense to check the two systems. The public system is based on your income. You pay a certain percentage. In the private system, you pay a fee depending on your age and your health status. In a lot of cases, the private insurance plans, if you pick a good one, have way better benefits. You have faster access to specialists. You have access to doctors. You might find somebody who speaks your language easier. And they also all have worldwide coverage, because for my international clients, it's also important once they're on business travel or if they're for some time back in their home country, that they're also covered there.
Interesting. So you would say someone who's on private health insurance by default gets more covered international health insurance, right? Or is there like
by default, I would say, so what I advise people is, it is interesting also money-wise most of the times, especially in the beginning, to change from public to private, because usually the people are young, the premiums are quite cheaper. Long term, you shouldn't change just because of the price, because prices get more expensive, and there is the point that in retirement, you need to pay the full amount by yourself. You don't have an employer anymore. Everyone I advise to change to the public insurance. I also advise to put the money they save at the beginning aside, invest that, and have that as an additional retirement buffer, because that will come at some point that health insurance is more expensive. We see the same trend also in the public health insurance. I think public health insurance also this year, so we're talking in 2024, is the first time for people eligible for private health insurance as employees more than €1,000 per month for the long-term care insurance and the health insurance for employer and employee. But at the end, that is quite a lot of money. That was 10 years ago, tremendously less. And if you opt for a good tariff with good benefits, you're definitely better off than in the public health insurance.
I guess it also depends, of course, of the age or your health condition, right?
Yeah.
And what about if you are relocating with your family and the other spouse or a husband is not working, or in those, and you have like kids who are going to school?
Yeah,
in those
cases, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I just made a LinkedIn post about the topic with the kids. So let's first cover the spouse part. If you are in a private health insurance and you have a spouse who is not working, then that might be a very costly endeavor, because in private health insurance, you need then to pay premiums for both of the adult people. That sums up to quite some money and is tremendously more expensive than in the public health insurance. Public health insurance has family coverage for free. So if you have a non-working partner, that is covered already in there. If your partner has an own job, however, where he or she earns less than the 70K, they have to go to the public insurance because it just comes with their employer. Kids are another factor. Kids also cost an own premium. Roughly, you can say between 150 and 200 euros, depending on which company you have the children insured with. For kids, I experienced that a lot of my clients and me myself experience that faster access to the doctors which are specialized on kids, especially when they're sick, when the daycare doesn't take them, when they cannot take to school, is really a factor that is worth also some money for a lot of people. I mean, you get 250 euros Kindergeld per kid in Germany. And if you invest that rather in a good health insurance than in something else, that might be beneficial if you can afford it.
I see. And you mentioned specialists in during the conversation, is there a rule of thumb, so to say, in a sense that with private health insurance, you are more in favor to get the appointment faster or to find a
Mm.
specialist faster compared to
The,
compared to public?
it shouldn't be the way it is, but it just comes intrinsically with the system. To understand that, you have to see how doctors get reimbursed from the two different systems. So in public health insurance, a doctor gets around about 30 euros for you once you visit them, but once a quarter. So you can assume that might not be super interesting to take on new customers if you don't have to. For a private insured individual, every time you see the doctor, they write you a bill, and this bill usually is between 50 and 100 euros, depends a little bit on what you have and how long you've been there and what kind of specialist is there. So that fact alone is the reason why, in most cases, if you tell a doctor, and that's why they ask you at the beginning, where are you insured? Are you private? Are you public? They're more in favor to make more revenue with one patient than with several others in the whole quarter. And therefore, it's just a normal economic function that most of the doctors still take on private insured people faster than others.
Yeah, makes sense. So would you say we will generalize a bit, but would you say that there are doctors that are exclusively working with public and private, or is it a mix in most cases?
You see a factor of that, especially in the big cities, Berlin, Hamburg, Munich. There are a lot of doctors now that gave back their public insurance license, basically. So they clearly state that they just take on new patients when they're privately insured. That happens more and more. I mean, also, it's not fair, but it's a point which these doctors do out of economic reasons. Um, you see more and more practices that exclusively deal with privately insured uh,
Hmm,
individuals.
makes
And
sense.
there are also some clinics, not just doctors, which take just private insured individuals. Or, I mean, you always have the option to pay that yourself, but that might come pretty costly at some point.
I see. Yeah. Great point. What I'm also interested is when you mentioned that your clients are traveling, is there a limit, apart from, let's say, tax reasons, how many days per year people can be outside the country where they're registered for the tax reasons and such, from the
Yeah.
health insurance perspective?
So for the health insurance perspective, the taxes don't play a huge role here. Here, it's more important to check that you have a tariff which covers the time frame you need. Most insurance plans nowadays have either 3 months consecutively you're covered in another country. Some, or the majority, I would say, have 6 months, and a few ones cover you also for a whole year that you would live abroad. It's more or less just the point of that are German health insurance plans. So they cover people mostly on site here in Germany for people who work here. It's not so much designed to be international health insurances. This is also a product that exists, but most of the time it doesn't relate with the German visa conditions to get a visa which allows you to work in Germany.
Hmm, I see.
I would, if I advise something, I would usually look for a tariff that covers at least 3 months, up to 6 months, because this is sometimes the case. Also, you mentioned tax cases. I see more and more flexible employment contracts where people are allowed to spend up to almost half a year in another country, because then uh, there is a tax bracket. If you live less than half a year in a country, you basically are not eligible to be taxed there anymore. And this is new. I mean, we all have to see how that works. The pandemic played in that cards. We see now more and more employees having to go back to physical offices, but there's still a lot of jobs also here in Germany where people are allowed to be not on site and to be not even in Germany for quite some time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, on my own experience at Homelike, we do have 60 days per year that we can work remotely outside Germany. And during
Yeah.
this period, we need to kind of register the new address for I believe, also health insurance reasons that go through our even public insurance, some coverage if something happens to us while
Yeah.
we are away.
We I see
Um,
also another trend here, Danny, and I wanted to mention that, which is
yeah,
also new for our social systems here in Germany. We have now more and more people who come to Germany and they have a spouse who works also, but they work still remotely in their home country. So these people automatically are registered from the public health insurance as freelancers, and they don't even get the chance to get public health insurance. So especially for a constellation like that, so one married partner coming here to be an employee somewhere and having a partner who works remotely but on site in Germany in another country, they need solutions that are today just provided by private health insurance companies. And therefore, if I'd be in a situation like that, I would strongly advise to reach out to specialists to help finding some adequate coverage here.
oh, for sure. Yeah, with the, let's say, liberalization of the remote work environment and people being able to live and work from almost anywhere around the world, there are more specific cases, right, and more niches to kind of focus
Yeah.
on or products. With that in mind, what would you say are so from my understanding, there are different categories or different models that can be combined for individual case in the private health insurance, right? So you can pick and mix, let's say it like that, and kind of make a customized solution for every person who is um, privately insured.
Exactly. You basically can customize the tariffs. You can customize what is insured, what is not insured. What I always advise people is to not take care of just the benefits in case you're sick, but also your salary. Most of the people here in Germany have basically 6 weeks of paid leave while they are sick. After 6 weeks, there is a option kicking in which is called Krankentagegeld. That is in the public health insurance up to 150 euros a day. If you opt for private health insurance, you have to make sure to have a component like that in your contract because otherwise you run the risk to be longer sick, be covered for your sickness, but don't have any income anymore, and you have to still pay your premiums for the health insurance. That is something I would really advise everybody to look deeper into that topic because I've seen clients in the past. I mean, I'm doing this new venture since the beginning of the year, but I work since quite some years in the industry, and I've seen people who didn't include that in their contracts, and that can really be a tremendous risk once you're longer sick.
Hmm, I see. Yeah. Um, Great. Thanks. So when the client approaches you, I believe that you would rather have them prepared to some level about or understanding about the topic when they have more concrete questions, right? Or some, let's say,
No,
idea.
that is
No?
I'm open to that. Ideally, and in most of the cases, I talk to people, make an introduction call, I get to know them, see what is their individual questions, what is their knowledge they're standing on, and I try to bring everybody on the same knowledge base that we know what we're talking about. There's the one system and the other, and there's the option to change. In a second chat usually I present what could be an option for them, and then a third very important step in the process is private health insurance also checks your health status. So basically, we have to make sure that people don't forget that they had any pre-existing conditions, that they have some disease already or had accidents in the past. We make a detailed list, and I usually then make an anonymized request at the health insurance companies to see and ask a few to get offers to what conditions they would give insurance to my clients. And afterwards, we decide together what is the best offer and pick one solution and get the whole contract started.
I see. Interesting. And if the well is public or let's say private health insurance something that you pick up for a lifetime, ideally, or does it make sense to kind of change between them depending on your situation?
No, that's a very important point, Danny. You have here in Germany, once we close a contract like that, that is a lifetime contract. So the insurance company doesn't have the right to terminate the contract. That's what the visa institutions ask for. So therefore, yes, in theory, you can change, but it comes sometimes with penalties. You lose some money, you pay additional fees and whatsoever. And what is very important when I advise people is to look for the right company and the right tariffs. Basically, you want to look for something that is stable enough to be still there and still there for a competitive price when you grew older. A lot of my clients are internationals that come to Germany and don't know yet how long they will be here. And some people are also going back to their home country or to another country. They don't have that problem then, but they can still pause the insurance while they're away and pick up on that once they're coming back to Germany. You pay a little fee for that. But this is something I would always handle that topic like I'm shopping for a lifetime product and not for something I want to switch every year, because it comes also like with the point of pre-existing conditions. Once you're too sick anymore to change, that will not be a possibility for you or your family anymore. Therefore, I treat it usually as a lifelong contract. And if you don't need it for your whole life and you have another option because you're going back, can still settle that and find a solution for the existing contract.
Very interesting. Yeah, I didn't look at it from the perspective of like a lifetime, let's say, commitment. But what about the case? So if you're a freelancer and you set up for the private health insurance, but let's say along the way you get a full-time job that is below the threshold for the private health insurance, what happens in that situation?
That's a good question. That is basically a built-in automatism. If you earn underneath the threshold, your employer has to enroll you, or you can do that yourself, in a public insurance. There are some cases when you, let's say, the threshold is this year almost 70,000 euros, so 69,000 euro, 300 odd number, but this threshold also increases every year. There are cases when the threshold is higher than your current income. In that case, you automatically would go back to the public insurance. You can opt out for your current job of this situation, but then you're opted out for this job forever. So you can never go back to the public system. Some people fear that. They have the feeling, but what if I'd like to go back to the public system? So if you take on a job which pays underneath the threshold, you automatically have to go back. There's not even a choice. And usually what happens then with the premiums you paid in for the private health insurance, there is some premiums which are reserved for old age. That will even pay some top-up insurances for you, like hospitalization top-up insurance and some stuff like that.
Amazing. And from your experience, how long is the process from the first conversation that you have with your client, let's say on average, or what is the most usual practice to get the private insurance?
To get the private insurance can be very fast and it can take long. It really depends on how the clients are helping to get the relevant data and getting the process started. I had already within just a matter of 3 days a policy delivered to a customer, but I also needed to wait a few weeks. Most of the times, if somebody is pretty healthy and you pick an insurance company that is also quite digital, that happens in a matter of days. Most of the times, if people are changing their health insurance from public to private, they need to wait anyhow 2 full months, and the rest of the actual month, that's the changing period you have between public and private, And if somebody comes from a foreign country, that is now even possible when people are still in their home country. And I managed to help them getting a policy within a few days.
Interesting. Great to know. Yeah, maybe one last question on the topic. So, thinking about, if you can set it up in 3 days or it can maybe extend to a couple of weeks, what would be the biggest blockers? Is it like getting some documentation from your origin country, or you'll know better.
Exactly.
What would be the
That's
blockers?
the biggest blockers are usually if you have medical preconditions and you don't have documentation about that. So let's say you had an accident or a surgery, and then the health insurance wants to have more details about that, sometimes in writing. Some health insurances also ask in certain constellation that you basically get your blood tested and have more or less a doctor's note. Sometimes that takes quite some time. Sometimes that is not necessary, and you don't need even that spot. So it's most of the times when there are medical conditions that are not the standard and nothing, then it takes some more time. So ideally, the younger and the healthier you are, the easier it is to tackle this topic.
And the more paper documentation you have on you, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Great. So let us know how our viewers can reach you. How can they get in touch with you? And basically, what would be the first steps in their journey?
I'm basically available almost everywhere online. You can go on my website, www.myGermanFinance.com, or the most preferred way on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. There's even a tool to book an appointment directly with me. Just reach out to me or send me a personal message, and I will be happy to talk about their individual situations, because it's always individual. There's not a blueprint, one size fits all. And I think that is our health. It's important to have their custom-made solution.
Yeah, thanks. We will definitely include the links that you mentioned in the description, so people can easily reach you with interacting with those links in the description below this video. And thank you, Felix, for your time today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we'll stay in touch on LinkedIn at least.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Danny. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for watching another episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye.